Hello and welcome to the RWBY podcast. You know what they say, you gotta go with the flow because the tides always turn, and sink or swim, diving in is the best way to learn. Kick up the sand because you're tan, proves you lived through the burn, and when you wipe out, it's gonna hurt. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn how to surf. And I am surfing through RWBY right now, guys. I am Mediocrity 4.
Well, I would like to say that I have a clever poem-like limericks that I could say for this opening, but I don't. It's your trusty moderator, high-powered.
That was literally the new Owl City song. I have it stuck in my head.
Well, I
Yeah,
wouldn't know. I don't
Yeah,
listen
that's
to a
weird.
whole lot of music.
me neither.
And it is, I am just so incredibly shocked that we have had three great Ruby episodes in a row. Shocked, but pleasantly surprised. So, therefore, I am Weiss when she finally sees Sean all aged up. I am Dude.
And I suppose I'm some sort of thing that would be like that in some way, but funnier. I'm Coop.
Well, I mean,
I
Coop,
love anti-jokes.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, Coop, you did a really good job acting in this episode too. I bet it was really weird, like being put inside of that green box studio, since you're a 8 foot tall jackalope like unicorn horse thing. You know.
What's really bad about it is actually just the mocap suit that they have to use on me. It's actually just made of barbed wire and tennis balls. So every time I get into it, I just feel it digging into my very flesh and causing me to bleed out, making the so that the iron rusts inside of me and gives me tetanus.
I mean, you could say it's your thorn crown to bear, since it's Easter and stuff.
Something along those lines, yeah.
Yep.
So, this episode was a lot denser than a usual RWBY episode, and a lot happened. A lot of important stuff happened that just will not be able to ignore ever again. It's finished. It's done. This is the new status quo. This is canon, guys. There's no going back. Finally, Volume 9 actually validated its existence.
Oh man. I will say this though. I'm gonna have to give Miles credit for his voice acting work for this, because he actually has like a good bit of range in John's character. So I'm kind of impressed. I'm kind of curious, like what the stage directions would be whenever he was like, okay, and then the cat shows up and you're like really angry because there's the cat. Like, pretend your asshole cat knocked over your entire like priceless Funko Pop collection.
Yeah, no, I'm loving this, and I'm really enjoying aged up Jean. I honestly enjoyed pretty much every aspect of him in this episode, even down to the detail of how how he got aged up in this episode. Like the whole thing about how random it was and how it was just kind of clumsy and bad luck and shit like that. It's like, yeah, that seems kind of stupid, but at the same time,
It fits.
in this bullshit world, it makes sense, and it just fits for Jean so perfectly that like he is such a fuck up. And even when he gets to be like this badass knight and gets wives to get wet for him and all that, he still manages to actually be a loser, as it turns out, because I think media kind of explained this earlier. He was going to be he thought he gets into the story, turns out he's the big hero, and no, it actually turns out, no, you still actually fucked everything up and you suck. So, and they're portraying that well. Like, it's not like it's, a lot of stuff when we say that about Ruby, it's like, oh, well, they don't realize that. It's funny because it's so bad. No, they realize that Jean is actually a loser and has fucked all this stuff up, and he's jaded and upset and miserable about it. And
Or,
I that they're admitting all of that.
Yeah, I mean,
or at the very least, have realized.
he even straight up says that, like, I couldn't even be the make-believe hero, which hits so much harder considering how just dumb RWBY is when it's the real world of RWBY. Like, he couldn't even be the make-believe hero that make-believes heroes. Like, he couldn't even be the Jay Garrick Flash from the Silver Age. That's a old reference. But yeah, I liked it because it happened so soon after Jean landed. He hadn't gotten his bearings yet, so it's not like he had no idea what this world was, how its rules worked, where he had no idea that this was even connected to the childhood story. Assuming he even knew about that story, I assume he did because he does make a reference to like, yeah, not my favorite story anymore. And it's a time fruit, which was one of the many jokes I.
Huh? You good, media?
You cut
Uh,
out there for a second.
I don't know if I cut out on my recording. I wasn't
You
looking at
did. You did.
OBS.
Just roll yourself back like
Yeah.
10 seconds, but don't go
Uh.
too far, or you'll end up like John. But then you could do weird stuff of history, though, if you like roll yourself back to like.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm not gonna have that conversation.
Well, if it did cut out on my end and on the recording, then I totally didn't make a One Piece reference, and if it did stay in, if you did hear me, then ignore the fact that I made a One Piece reference and put something cooler in. No, there's nothing cooler than One Piece. At least to me. But no, I like this. I feel like I've seen this sort of thing before. God, there was a book I read when I was a kid. The Time Bicycle, or something like that. Where
That definitely
The
sounds like
time,
some
the
kind of
time
children's book.
treehouse.
no, there is the Magic Treehouse. That's something different. But no, in the Time Bike book that I'm thinking of, uh, he he has a magic bicycle that has like this clock or whatever, uh, and he's experimenting around with it, and he asks his teacher like, "Hey, what if you could go back to any time period? Where would you go back to?" He's like, "Oh, I would go back to the Roman Empire and stuff, and see the Alexander, whatever. I don't remember all the details of this book, but what I do remember,
Not saving Caesar. What a loser.
what I do remember is that this is how the protagonist found out the hard way that the bike does not really transport through space. So as he's like rewinding back in time, he's just rewinding back in time in North America, like down his street, and then he ends up like running into Native American, and the little watch, the magic watch on his bike breaks, and he gets stuck there for a while. um the year like 30 AD North America, which is not where he wanted to be, and it's not a place that has any kind of biker clock shop, so he's stuck there for a while. That's what this kind of reminds me of.
It does. Oh man, I wonder if like John made himself like a very crude and like rudimentary like Pyrrha sex doll to keep himself entertained while he waited all that time.
Oh,
I knew you were gonna say that. The second you
god damn it, High Power, go to horny jail.
You can't put me in jail. I am the warden of this Discord server, along with Coop.
And I don't think I can move you because I can't change your name or anything either. So, unfortunately, he has to remain. Now, that said, if I was going to be trapped in a strange land and had nothing with which to masturbate, I would probably handcraft a doll like, I don't know, Fran Drescher or somebody else hot.
Ooh, I don't even know who I'd do it to just to like keep myself from going insane as like
I mean, you don't
schizophrenia.
have to do just one, as long as you've got enough materials for enough Dakimakura pillows. You you can pretty much do whatever you want. Like
Just
the world,
imagine trying to like recreate your waifu from like memory and it's been 10 years and your cell phone has ran out of battery.
I mean, it might be that you don't even recreate your waifu. It might be that you create the ultimate platonic ideal form of it, since you've been completely segmented off from the actual thing.
Speaking of waifus, I think Weiss found a new husbando, or as soon as she saw Dilf John, she was new fetish unlocked immediately.
Well, she does have daddy issues, so it tracks that she'd be like into someone older than she is by a
Yeah,
noticeable
she just
margin.
didn't realize it until then.
One of the things that I really feel like at least the character arcs or character dynamics in this volume have been very well executed and rooted in like the way the actors and the writers think about the characters rather than the characters being uh people to drive the plot, which is something that RWBY has fallen into on numerous occasions. We'll get to that when we get to that. But one of the examples here is there's a thing from a con or something that's making the rounds now because of this episode where it was Erin, Blake's voice actress, and Kara, Weiss's voice actress, talking about like what their characters are into, and Kara being like, "No, I feel like Weiss is into maturity and people who, take care of their own people and are will actually like stand up for themselves and stand up for those around them and under them. Like that's the stuff that she's into." Jean did not fit that bill before, and he does now because he's the Rusted Knight and he's protecting this village that we don't really see much of in this episode. Hopefully, maybe next episode. But it's there. He talks about it, and it's part of the story with Alex, which we'll get to that too. We'll try to hit everything. This is a dense episode. A lot happened. A lot was explained and discussed, and we'll try to get to all of it. But the highlight for a lot of people was Weiss fawning over Jean, and then getting all flustered and embarrassed at her own actions, with like Blake and Yang being like, "Yeah, you go, girl," and RWBY just looking at,
you go get that arc dick.
and then RWBY's looking at her like a disapproving mother.
That was just so well done. I laughed. I actually laughed at that. That was pretty funny. Because here's the thing. Do you guys remember? I'm pretty sure one of us, I think it was High Powered, called something like this basically happening. That Weiss specifically would be into Dilf John.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we were making
I'm
that
pretty sure-
joke
Yeah, we were
all
making that
volume.
joke.
Yeah, we've been making
Yeah.
that joke all volume because of stuff that Kara has said in interviews and stuff regarding Weiss and Jean, and the fact that Jean did ask her out in volume 2 and volume 1 to a lesser extent. And there's some history there. Like I remember it was in volume 7 when Blake and Yang were all like, "Oh, we're just gonna hang out here, just with us." And Weiss was like, "Yeah, I'd rather hang out with Jean." And then she did. Like I remember that happening. I was like, see, it's the thing. They're doing the thing.
Well, there's even a smaller like thing too. If you notice, whenever they're in the pun storm, which hold up a second, where's my gun? I need a. It would look really good in my mouth right now. Okay. If you notice on this on the sign, there's a cat paw, and then there's like a very crudely drawn John in there too, and I'm pretty certain they were trapped in Weiss's pun storm. If what I would guess from there, and they go down the John's arc.
Yeah, well, and it's explained that the reason why Ruby, Weiss, and Jean specifically are together is because the issues they're dealing with are very similar. But it is much more indicative of Weiss. It has a lot more Weiss imagery with mirrors. Mirror, mirror being her theme
There's
song.
also the fact that Lancaster seems completely dead because it seems like they are just not going to ship Ruby with anybody at this point.
Which I am
Like,
fine with.
I'm
yeah, I'm okay with
this.
that. I can live with it. I have other issues in regard to shipping. Soapbox ready to go. Not yet, but
We'll
soon.
get to there.
But
Its eyes are
Ruby-
glowing faintly in the background.
Yeah, no, the Ruby just seems like the way she's been so clueless to almost like a lot of things, and you know the fact she's so disapproving of Weiss's reaction means she's like practically asexual at this point. The way they're portraying her, at least. So it's White Knight all the way now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it was mostly just a one-off joke at this point. I don't think they're going to go anywhere with it.
I don't know. It's hard to say. My opinion is if they've hard confirmed one ship, like the floodgates are open for them to start confirming others.
Yeah.
In my
Like,
personal opinion.
Lancaster will always have a special.
It would make sense in their early 20s in a civilization that needs to fuck to survive, and they have literally shown how young their goddamn parents all are. Like just logically, two of them should be pregnant already.
Well, yeah, I mean, logically, there's a lot of things that one would expect from a civilization that requires heterosexual intercourse to occur to pressure young people into doing, but this show apparently doesn't really go off of those rules.
No, they got to have their representation. But no, as far as Ruby, like Lancaster will always have a special place in my heart. It was the first romance that I ever tried writing for. It will always be like the centerpiece of my very first published work of anything, which was my fan fiction Ruby On. It will those two dorks, Ruby and Jean, will always have a special place in my heart, and their friendship will always have a special place in my heart. But with that said, I like Arrow Ace Ruby, and part of that's because one of my best friends is Arrow Ace. It has a lot to do with especially now that Jean is aged up and Ruby is like at most 18. And I'd rather Ruby be shipped with no one than be shipped with someone like Oscar or Weiss. Like I like her friendship with Weiss as well. I think they're very cute together and everything. If you ship it, all the power to you. I prefer Ruby not being romantically involved with someone, especially now with the shit that they're dealing with her in this volume. Like, I could really see her eventually putting her foot down and being like, no more. I'm not going to bring someone into this world just to suffer the same fate as me and my mom. Like, I can totally see her being like, the cycle ends here. After everything that's been going on in this volume.
I don't want my daughter to be a silver-eyed warrior or whatever.
So media, you're telling me there's actually a proper way to write a female character going through a bunch of inner turmoil to the point where she doesn't feel comfortable getting into a relationship all of a sudden? You're telling me there's a proper way to write that?
Yeah, I kind of did it in one of the arcs of RWBY On.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I wish the writers knew that last season.
I feel like they're doing that with RWBY. Like, maybe they're not. Maybe they screw it up. We still got 4 episodes left in this volume. There's plenty of time. It only takes 1 episode to really sour the whole pie. But I really feel like they're really digging their teeth into RWBY, which is like really refreshing and great because she's supposed to be the team leader, and yet she's been not as active as I would have liked her. Like, I've said time and time again, RWBY doesn't need to change to be an interesting character. A character doesn't necessarily need to be constantly changing to be an interesting character. Look at the Arrow Ace King of all of anime, and future King of the Pirates, Monkey D. Luffy in One Piece. He hasn't changed much throughout the whole 1080 chapters of One Piece, but he's still an interesting, fascinating character because he has such consistent characterization, and he is this force of personality, and he does encourage change in others, and that's the kind of character I think RWBY should be, could have been. I think it's what they were originally going for, and then they just never really did that. They never sold it. Until now.
Yeah, no, but my point was that, yes, they are doing that well with RWBY. My point is they did not do that with another character last season.
Yes. We'll get to that. You are just like trying to climb up on that soapbox like a kid on a couch.
Yep.
So as the punderstorm shoots myself starts rolling in, some revelations drop about the history that Jean has with
the
cat. And I really feel like that another shoe is going to drop. But for now, we'll get to that. We'll get to my theory that I proposed later. Let's actually discuss what Jean says, which is that the story is a lie, which I think is really fascinating. Well, maybe fascinating is too strong of a word. It's definitely a take on like the fairy tales are real angle that I don't see enough of, which is that everything is written with an agenda. No, it's that whole concept. History is written by the winners. History has an agenda. Historians have an agenda. Everyone will try to whitewash away their own sins, and that seems to be the case for Alex, because the story she wrote is not what happened.
I love this kind of twist or revelation and the way they're doing it, because they're not even necessarily saying that Jean is completely correct, because we have the original story, we have Jean's perspective on it, we also have the cat's perspective on it, and honestly, the cat hasn't been complete bullshit yet, so I don't know that they're necessarily going to just say, oh, everything the cat says is wrong. And plus, we still haven't actually found out exactly what has happened to Alex or her brother, and I'm expecting we will find out something about that in the future.
Oh,
If
yeah.
they make Sean not entirely correct, I will be thrilled, because as somebody who majored in history in college, this whole idea of unreliable narrators and pulling from a different variety of sources, and some parts of each source is kind of correct and none of them are completely correct, that kind of stuff, I get off on that stuff. That is awesome, and that is so high level for this show. And they may kind of ruin that. They may make just Sean completely right, but so far I don't think that's where they're going. And even the potential of them going through this like murky mix of unreliable narrators is really clever, and it is fascinating. I actually don't think fascinating is an overstatement. I think it's actually apt in this case. So I really, really like that, and I think that's really interesting.
It's like a jigsaw puzzle, and I think it's, the story are pieces of the puzzle. John's side of the story and this cat's side of the story are all pieces of the puzzle, because I don't think the cat's like an evil character. I think the cat's more just like an asshole like demigod that's walking around in the ever after.
Yeah,
Or
so
like a chaotic force of nature per se. And there's probably pieces of the jigsaw puzzle that are still missing too.
yes.
Like,
So the reason why I think that, and the reason why I'm gonna propose this theory, so in regards to Lewis, Alex's brother, who none of these characters knew existed, because he got written out of his story, and he is named after Lewis Carroll, the writer of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass. Um, they were together, and he was like too good for this sinful world type, where she was this snarky, almost like sadistic person, and they kind of allude to that characterization a little bit in it was either episode 1 or 2 where Weiss is like, she did what she had needed to survive. You can't really talk about the morality of old stories like that because everything was so different. So there is a bit of that cultural clash that could be that. Like, it could be that what Alex and the cat deem completely acceptable is something that is just unacceptable to Jean because he is a man out of time. Um, and or time displaced, if you prefer that nomenclature. Um, but then the when Jean straight up asks the cat what happened, the cat straight up says, "I don't know," and that's what raised the red flag to me. And then Jean at the end saying, "I think Alex sacrificed Lewis to the tree in order to escape." That leaves a larger red flag open that there's another shoe that's going to drop. And that maybe Alex didn't sacrifice Lewis, maybe Lewis sacrificed himself. Or maybe Lewis sacrificed Alex. Maybe Lewis Carroll is the one who wrote this book. Under the synonym. They've never addressed who wrote the book. They've always just assumed it was Alex. They never even thought it was real. So they just assumed once they found out that the story was real that it must have been Alex who wrote the book or was the one responsible for the book's creation, whether through shadow writer or pseudonym or whatever the case may be. I'm saying that they've been vague enough about that to where they can have that twist.
What I would like to know is not necessarily like who wrote the book, but more like when was the book written?
That's another thing that I kind of question.
Because we know that it's like the book was written prior to like all of them being children. So I'm wondering if
It's almost like a Mandela effect.
Yeah,
per se.
I'm not sure if like it's like again the whole thing with time in this is kind of weird, but if I were to like draw it out, you've got the two timelines for this world and the one in which they were previously, the regular RWBY world. And so you have point A on the timeline would be, I would say, when all of them dropped in, and that would be point A on the timeline in the RWBY world. And then you would have 2 points that this creates in the timeline on the other world, point J for John, who came before point R for RWBY, 30 years or so, roughly, however many decades. You have a point, a nebulous point, actually, because I'm not sure when exactly Alex dropped in if the time works like this. So we'll just put that as point question mark off on the side. So Alex drops in also sometime around point J and comes out on point, we'll call that X, I guess, because of the last letter of the name, and I already used point A. But this point X is sometime far before point A when they all previously dropped in. So the main question is, when exactly is this point X at? How many years ago was this book published? When was the question mark point of her coming in? Because if Alex came in at some time before when she got out, then we could possibly think she got in and got out on a relative time frame that's kind of makes sense when she got in after she dropped into the world. But possibly this question mark point actually may have occurred far in the future from even point A when our own characters got dropped in.
So,
So it's possible that
once you bring time travel into it, all bets are off. So what we see is Jean landing. He sees, as he's crashing, he sees Crescent Rose and takes note of that because his and Ruby's friendship is just that good. He crashes. He sees Weiss and I think Blake falling through the sky. And while trying to like get his bearings, that's when he gets the time for and time travels. And then some time passes as he's waiting, and then he sees Alex and Lewis crash, and then he meets up with them, and they're still. The thing is, Jean either stopped aging at a certain point, or there are some other time-based shenanigans at play here, like maybe time in this world doesn't move the way it does in Remnant, so when Alex left, she left at her own time. And it goes back to the theory that like when you crash land in this world, you can crash land at any time within this world's history. And that Jean was only thrown back because of the watch and because of fate and getting him out of the way and Russ and Knight and whatever the case may be. Because as far as the rules of time travel go, which I was actually thinking about recording a completely separate video on this topic, but we're talking about time travel, so I have to address this. Time travel is bullshit. There is the theory that that there is actually a law of physics that we're just not even aware of that prevents time travel from happening in our world. And all the evidence I need is the fact that like no one's been busted time traveling in our time or any other point in history. The fact that we live in such harsh time is kind of evidence that no one is going back to fix anything ever in our future. But when time travel gets brought into stories, you see a lot of like armchair physicists who try to explain the mechanics or explain like the rules or what would happen, when really it's whatever the writers want. It doesn't even have to. They don't even have to really stick by their own rules because you can have like an in-game situation. In Avengers Endgame, they say the rules are kind of one way, but then as it goes on, it turns out like maybe that's not really the way that time travel works, and that makes sense because time travel, as far as Earth goes, is a new thing in Avengers Endgame. They wouldn't actually know all the rules because you don't know the rules of physics until you actually put them to the test.
I really wouldn't bring up Avengers Endgame of all things as like a model to be looked at
I'm saying that as an example of a movie that has seemingly inconsistent time travel, but really just highlights how bullshit time travel is as a concept, no matter how much you try to work out all the mechanics.
Because Avengers Endgame time travel, it wasn't awful, but it wasn't great, and you really can't do it perfectly. And honestly, I'm just annoyed that they even went down the time travel route for that. But it's a whole different thing.
Here's
But
the
yeah, I
thing,
agree.
like, here's the thing, like the entire thing with that you can't do it perfectly, or that it isn't normal, or that it's fantasy, it's not realistic, and armchair physics, blah blah blah. This is all a moot point. It's not. I don't care about whether or not they uh, do it perfectly. I more care about whether it sort of establishes how it works within whatever fantasy story they want to use to do it, and then they just do it like that. And I don't like Avengers Endgame for changing the rules that it laid out. I don't think that was a good thing that it did, and I don't think it deserves any praise for it. And I don't think if and the thing is with this that they've laid out like basically no rules for it. Um, and another thing, even if you were to do some armchair physicist shit with it, they do actually have a rather interestingly convenient way of making one of the more logically comprehensible armchair physicist time travel things happen, in that they have two separate universes with two separate timelines.
I mean, I don't even really care about like that too much. I just care about if the time travel is easy enough to understand and it actually is meaningful to the story and helps tell the story. Which, in if that's the case, fucking RWBY has done time travel better than Avengers, because I
So,
agree with Coop that they did contradict themselves and there's issues, but honestly, this whole time travel thing for Jean, to me, it was pretty easy to understand. I don't think people enter just wherever in the timeline. I think it's pretty straightforward that they enter in a certain kind. And yes, time may move slower in this, fantasy world, within a fantasy world. I think
Or
it's you
even
enter
what you
whatever
think.
time you come in. Jean went back far enough that he went back to the time when Alex would have and her brother would have come in, and that's it. And I don't really need to know any more of that. If they try to explain any further, then it's going to be more confusing. I don't want them to do that. The important thing is, I was wondering how Jean got aged up. Blah blah blah. This actually makes more sense than a lot of other things they could have done, and again, like I said before, it fits with Jean that he somehow managed to fuck up even more somehow. Fits with what happened with him, works with his character so well. Along with, so not only did he not get to actually be the hero, he got cucked from it because he thought he was going to be the hero. Turns out he managed to fuck that up too. And he's had to live with, for like 10 plus years, the fact that he and other people fucked up everything up on the surface. Like he hasn't even actually talked about that yet. What I appreciate again about this episode, I can't believe how much I'm praising the writers here. They implied all of that just by doing what they did, and they don't even have to explain how fucking traumatizing that would have had to be for Jean. And I love
You just
that.
look
I
at
love
him,
how
oh
fucking
yeah,
and
they
you know he's
used
traumatized.
they use the old World of Remnant art style for Jean's like backstory, the new aged up backstory here. But no, generally speaking, time travel stories fall into one of three camps. They are either loops, paradoxes, or multiverses. Multiverses tend to be like the one people favor because that's what Terminator 2 and 3 sort of did, kinda.
That's not really what they did at all.
Uh,
Terminator was even weirder about this
well,
stuff. Like
Terminator 1 was a loop. Terminator 1 was where the time travel is what causes the need for the time travel. And stuff like 12 Monkeys, and this falls under loop, the loop camp as well. Because no matter how you slice it, the Rusted Knight was already in the story before Jean fell, and then Jean became the Rusted Knight, which means that it's a constant loop. Jean becomes the Rusted Knight. He helps write the story or helps make the story happen. Then no matter what he does to try to change it, Alex still changes the story regardless because she can write whatever the fuck she wants. And then that inspires this generation of heroes, which include Jean, who then becomes a huntsman and goes to Atlas and is there for its fall, and then falls into the Ever After, and then hits the Time Fruit, and then becomes the Rusted Knight, and helps write, and then it just keeps looping from there. And loop that's why, like, in my opinion, this is just a complete opinion thing. Everyone is privy to their own opinion on where they fall in time travel. I find the loops to be the most narratively satisfying. Because once you bring the multiverse stuff in it, this, like, okay, then does any of this matter? That multiverse is what, like, DC tends to do. And then paradoxes are, like, the most, like, weird and mind-numbing, where it's like, oh, I killed my own grandpa, but then became my own grandpa, and it's kind of a loop, but it's not, because I killed him, and it's not the same, and it's degrading, and I might erase myself from existence. But if I erase myself from existence, then that means I couldn't time travel to fuck everything up, which then means that I can time travel to fuck everything up. But if I fuck everything up, then I can't time travel to fuck it. It's the paradox camp is basically the opposite of the loop camp, which is why I don't like the paradox stuff as much.
I kind of, whenever
let
for
me
me it's time travel, I kind of subscribe to the like the Kali Yuga, or there's fixed points in time that are fixed and static. So it's like you can even
a lot of
say with like John coming into into the past and like experiencing this, it's like this is something that will like always happen, even if you like time travel. Like, as like no matter how hard you fight against it, it's like you're always gonna end up like in this spot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what Doctor Who does, or at least what Doctor Who claims to do. Uh, when it's a good episode. Doctor
All right,
Who,
I'm gonna in here and say
Doctor Who changes its rules depending on who's writing. To be
not
honest.
too much to talk about getting into this time travel discussion. I think we need to move on.
Yeah, let's get back to RWBY.
mm,
So there is a detail in that flashback which I don't know if y'all caught, but whenever John is getting an overdose from the fucking Zaza, like as it cuts away, you see the curious cat's eyes for like a couple of frames as it's fading
Yeah.
back into the normal bit. There's also a good visual gag with Weiss at the beginning of it where she just gets like, whatever like power that controls the Ever After is like putting its thumb on Weiss again.
Yeah, she says something about a pitfall and then falls through the floor and then does like a looping and crashes back down onto it, shattering her back. No.
Dang, no, John was supposed to do that.
Her aura protected her. And Jean just kind of rolls his eyes. There's a lot of good opportunity for visual gags here. They only do the one though. Then they walk through. This is when we get like Jean's recounting of events. And the fact that like Alex apparently poisoned him. Which could also be used as an explanation for why he hasn't aged since. But they have like these little waterfall mirror things, and they all see like the things that they have lost. Like Weiss sees the city of Atlas. Jean sees Penny, and then he sees his younger self. RWBY doesn't look at the mirrors, but fucking Summer is in one of the mirrors.
Oh yeah, it's on point.
That gave me a little mini jump scare for the same reason that her reflection in the axe last episode gave me a little mini jump.
No, that was good, and I'm glad they didn't try too hard with the visual gags because, again, like I said before, I don't love this fantasy world. It's growing on me, but I still don't love it. But I'd rather them use it to do good character progression and character stuff than try to be all cute and flashy, which is what RWBY used to be. I'm preferring this. If they had they had the opportunity for more visual gags in this Punderstorm, but you know what? They did good character work, so I'm good with them doing that instead of trying to be all funny and cute.
Speaking of funny and cute, I think it's time we talk about that scene.
Oh yeah. Hey, let's
Dude.
talk nice to each other, and then we're gonna kiss. That was the scene. Oh yeah. Bumblebee got hard confirmed, guys.
Yeah, dude, you want that soapbox?
Is my soapbox ready now?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
So here's the
very
thing.
dirty.
I do ship Bumblebee. As anybody who's followed this podcast for a while knows, I've shipped it for a while. The fact that Bumblebee is confirmed, I'm happy about. I'm glad because you know what? Like I said, they're like 20 or 21 years old. And they've been pussyfooting around this shit for too long. Obviously, they've been shipping them for a while now. So, yeah, it makes sense. Put them together. And I actually don't even hate the scene specifically that they did. It's a little bit too on the nose for me, but as somebody who started dating his wife when he was a sophomore in high school, I do sort of, and some of those people are very nervous. There might be some antisocial people. I get the sort of awkwardness and the reluctance to say how you feel because you risk, you know, destroying what's there and you don't want to be rejected and all of that stuff. I get that. I've been there. So I don't dislike the way they did this. It was kind of cute. Again, it wasn't perfect, but you know what? It's good enough. And they needed to confirm the ship because of the way they were already going with it. Okay, I'm not saying that Black Sun wouldn't have worked. I agree that it would have. Okay, but the way they were already writing everything at this point, it would have been bad writing to not address this. So I'm glad they got this done. And it was, again, a little overly on the nose, but it does fit the metaphor that they were using for their relationship. So I get it. That's fine. Now, the problem with this, though, is what they did to Renora. And I know I keep blabbering on about this. I don't really care about the ship that much anymore. I really don't, because the show this volume has been great. And I love that. And the show last volume was pretty good. So I'm not, like, it's the reason why I keep harping about it is because it is bad writing. And Renora was probably the best example of character relationships and writing relationships in the show. It was one of their shining examples. I mean, Kodo Yuri was arguably their best, definitely a top 3 episode, and it was really well done. So basically, my issue is the fact that they confirmed Bumblebee before Renora isn't the main. I mean, that is kind of an issue. Not because I care about the ship more, but because it doesn't make sense. What the fact that they did all this and I thought, you know, a lot of people were worried or thinking, hey, maybe they're just like really not wanting to or whatever, blah blah blah. Okay, fine, but then they do this, so why the fuck are they holding up Renora? It doesn't make any goddamn sense to do what they did. And I don't necessarily mind that they confirmed this shit before Renora. What I do mind is that they specifically threw a fucking bullshit wrench in Renora and halted it. Very, very obviously and specifically halted that ship in its tracks for no fucking good reason. And I know I've ranted about this before, so I'm not going to spend too much time explaining why Nora's motivation is bullshit. But it does kind of come up again because RWBY right now is being written as basically Arrow Ace RWBY, which is fine. And her situation right now is she's going through too much shit to be able to in a healthy way deal with a relationship or romance or anything like that. That makes sense. That does not make sense for Nora at fucking all, the way they've written her. The inconsistency with the writing in the show is the big problem. Like, what? Why do that? Why fuck up Renora? Again, for no good reason. Nora has no baggage at this point. Not the way they're writing it. It makes no fucking sense. She already went through that. Her lack of confidence is coming out of nowhere. Ruby's lack of confidence right now is coming out of somewhere, coming out of a lot of places, and it makes really, really good sense. Again, I'm criticizing the show while also complimenting it because they're writing Ruby really well this volume. They've written Blake and Yang both absolutely fucking horribly in the past, but you know what? They can't address all of that. They're writing them pretty well right now. So the fact that they're doing this and then fucking Renora in the ass bugs me, and not specifically because Renora, because they're fucking any relationship over in the ass, yet also confirming another one that has a lot less basis in it. And that really bugs me. And the last thing I'll say is the thing that really pissed me off was when they come back and they're kissing, and Jean says his line, "Oh man, it feels like I've been waiting years for that." Yes, Jean, we have. We've also been waiting many more years for them to confirm Renora, and they haven't. Fuck you, writers.
I mean, I feel like
I also don't. This kind of goes back to, issues with. All right, so just to give you a little insight into my daily life, one of the reasons why I use social media as much as I do is because I use it almost like an investigative journalistic tool, where I get people's opinions just by searching up keywords in like the Twitter search bar and stuff. And one of the very interesting things I found regarding the scene came from an LGBT person who has never seen RWBY and only knows about it through like this scene and a couple of the other clips that have trended on Twitter, because this trended on Twitter when this happened. I actually kind of got somewhat spoiled. I didn't see the kiss, but I saw like Bumblebee trending, and I saw like the smoke and them on the bridge and stuff. So I saw a little bit of that before I had a chance to actually watch this episode. And they were kind of analyzing the scene, and I think they kind of hit the nail on the head. This 2-minute vertical slice where they're on the bridge, and it's this metaphor for their relationship, how they're close but they're still out of reach, and if they just speak honestly and speak how they really feel instead of burying their feelings the way that Renora has done for, as Judah said, stupid reasons, then they can finally like get to the more stable platform, which is also the key to getting out of this thunderstorm. And of course, the final nail in this plank is Yang confessing that she loves Blake. That 2-minute scene is really good. The problem is that RWBY is bullshit, and that Blake and Yang have been written so I can't even really say inconsistently, because they've been consistently irritating. Blake's been consistently irritating since Volume 1, and Yang has only gotten consistently irritating since Volume 5. And a lot of that irritation has come from them, like, flirting and being like, tee-hee-hee, are we in love? Are we not? Tee-hee-hee-hee-hee. Fuck off. Like Marrow said it back in Volume 7, like, can you guys, like, just either lay off each other or just shut up and fuck already? And so there's a lot of that was going on in Volume 7. Not as much in Volume 8, because throughout most of Volume 8, they were actually separated. In case you forgot, because it's been a long time since Volume 8 happened. Ruby and Yang kind of had that argument, and they split the team up. And when they did, Blake actually took Ruby's side, which I liked a lot. Um, and it kind of forced Yang to kind of think about herself as a person. It did what it did in a much, without saying it, it did kind of what I think they were going for with Ren and Nora, who were also split up that volume. With Ren and Nora, they were both more in our face about it, and also a lot more rushed and a lot less clever about it. Um, and all of that kind of leads to this confession, which is like this. Oh, finally, they're doing the thing that we knew they were going to do since Volume 6, when High Powered and I were both up here saying that they are, and I think this is High Powered's quote, they are romantically primed. High Powered, you were saying that
Yes.
back in Volume 6. It's
Yes.
been 3 volumes since then. So, like, this isn't rushed, clearly. It's been a third of the show has been leading directly to this moment. The problem is, as the problem always is, especially in regards to Blake, that she's such an irritating person that as Yang is laying this on pretty thick, I'm like, yeah, since when?
Yeah,
You're such an amazing person. You never gave up on people, no matter how much they hurt you, except that Adam fucker.
Yeah, and the time she ran away from everybody, including Yang, when after Yang got her arm cut off. Don't forget about that, Volume 3.
Yeah, I was like,
So,
whatever,
there's that.
Yang. You are blowing smoke right up her ass.
Yeah.
Which is
So,
exactly what you do if you want to get a girl to fall in love with you. Lie to her. Everybody knows that if you want a girl, you need to be the most bullshitting piece of shit person ever. Also, it helps if you're a trash bag who constantly asks her for money and then goes out and spends it on stupid shit like beer and stuff.
Yeah, and other women.
It reminds me, oh man, I saw this Family Feud clip about a week and a half ago. That was like name no, what's the first thing the husband does when they're in trouble, and the person immediately answered lie. And Steve Harvey just like froze and did his whole like little hand over the mouth thing, was like, "Son, you don't know how right you are."
Hmm.
You are so right that I'm pretty sure no one would ever have the balls to say that, but we'll see. Is it up there? And it wasn't. Because, like, no one wanted to admit that they would lie in that kind of situation, but they do. And not
You
saying
have
that
to
they lie is
understand,
itself a lie.
you have to understand though, the reason that you have to lie is because women are stupid, and if you try to tell them the truth, they'll hate you for it.
I wouldn't go that far, but
I
is me going
because
that
I just
far the truth, or is that just me lying in order to sound more like a feminist?
but I
You'll
would say
never
this that
know.
I would say this more. Yeah, the entire thing of telling the babe how great she is, like, yeah, I suppose Yang can do that, and intertextually within the grand literary scheme of the great American classic, well woven into the mythos of our very nation that is RWBY now. I would say that, yeah, the context of it, like, it doesn't make sense there. But if you think about like how often RWBY sort of just ignores everything that's happened willy-nilly in whatever means is convenient, then yeah, nobody nobody really ever has kind of actually brought brought Blake up on like anything that she's done that was kind of stupid in any meaningful way. Like, anything that's come even close has kind of just like proven her, been weighted heavily in her favor by, let's say, circumstance, let's say other characters' ignorance. I don't know which, and I don't particularly care to figure out one, but she's not great. She's a terrible person. This couple will end up most likely like 40% of all lesbian couples do if they continue on like this. Uh, but
Oh no,
that
we're about to do the bit again. We're about to do the bit again. Oh god.
I'm not quoting accurate statistics here because I haven't looked up what the most recent lesbian domestic violence statistics are. So it might be that they've actually grown far higher in the time between the last I saw them. But I highly doubt that they'll play anything in between the two for anything uh, coming off of this that even comes remotely close to realistic. And I don't think anybody should like.
The joke that I had was this was like pre-podcast as we were getting warmed up. I was like, man, I'm just thinking in my head that like John had like gaslit himself, and it's like, oh yeah, I know this tour thinks it's like volume 5 was like the running bit, the gag that I had in my head.
Oh, yeah, that'd be funny if he like just kind of projected. But no, I was kind of cackling a little bit there, Coop, because as you were saying that, I looked it up. It is this is a quote from domestic violence something dcvip.org, whatever that is. And it's the first thing that pops up on when you try to Google this. Around 44% of lesbian and 61% of bisexual women have experienced forms of physical violence by an intimate partner, as compared to 35% of straight women, 26% of gay men, and 37% of bisexual men have experienced forms of physical violence by an intimate partner, compared to 29% of straight men. So
I was remarkably close.
yeah, I'm man.
Okay, so I wasn't gonna get into this, but since you guys
That's
have kind
funny.
of already opened the
Yes,
floodgates, I'm
Uh-oh.
going to add
Uh-oh, Sinky.
something. I'm
yes.
going to add to my rant. Now, like I said, I shipped Bumblebee partly because I kind of thought they worked together because they were both kind of crap. But the thing is, on the other thing that bugs
You
me about,
basically shoved them into a trash box together so they wouldn't fuck with
yeah,
anyone else. That's
yeah,
right.
that's why I kept shipping it. Okay, so part of my issue with them confirming this ship and confirming it before Renora is that, as we have, as some of you, as you guys have explained, they basically bullshitted their way into this ship. Not that, again, I saw signs of Bumblebee for a long time. A lot of people have, right? That's not the issue. The issue is that what we just said, Yang is lying to Blake. Blake is a shitty person, obviously. Yang has been a terribly written character, even worse than Blake for the past several seasons. She's been the worst part of the show for the most part recently, until basically this volume, essentially, right? So they have skipped around all of that in order to try to confirm this ship. And they've done the exact opposite to Renora, a ship that was basically confirmed from volume 1 or 2. And especially basically confirmed after volume 4. And then they basically confirmed it again by having them fucking kiss in, was that volume 7 or volume 8? That was volume 7, right?
I
Yes,
can't remember.
that was volume 7. That because that was before Tyrion
Oh yeah, that's
slaughtered
right.
all those people.
So then they kiss in volume 7, and they have and their characters were consistent the entire time. Everything made sense. Nora was a very confident, self-assured person for the right reasons, unlike what Blake has become. Or And yet they throw all of that away for, honestly, I have no fucking idea what reason. Why? Why did they suddenly think it was a good idea to have Nora all of a sudden become a completely fucking different character? It's not even about the fact that they fucking kicked Nora to the curb. They kicked Nora's character to the curb. They're like propping up Blake and Yang, the two worst written, arguably two of the shittiest fucking characters in the fucking show. Blake is a terrible person who deserves to be in fucking jail, and as Coop has said, has received zero comeuppance for what she and that she absolutely deserves. And yet Nora, who's been a great person the entire time, she's not the deepest character, no, but she had enough development, especially in Kuroyuri episode. It makes sense. She's been a good character. She's been decently well written, ignorable at the worst, right? And a good person in the universe, and yet they're gonna fuck her character up. Again, not even talking about the relationship part of it. They just fucked her character. It does not make any sense that she lost her confidence and went through whatever bullshit arc they're gonna have her go through. And I wouldn't be as mad if I thought that this clever, Punderstorm thing they did where they had people address their feelings and address their actual deeper insecurities and stuff like that. I kind of like that idea. But if I knew they were going to use Blake and Yang's experience to get Ren and Nora through whatever they're going through, that would be fantastic. But I don't have the confidence in the writers for them to do that. So it's fucking infuriating that they bullshit Blake and Yang into getting them into relationship, while then bullshitting Renora to not get them into relationship after spending 8 fucking volumes making them seem like they're basically already married. Like, god damn, that's so hypocritical, and it's really fucking infuriating. Which again, it's not an issue with, as media said, it's not an issue with this volume. It's an issue with the rest of the show. So again, still love this volume as an episode.
It's a RWBY problem.
Loved this episode. I like the way they got Blake and Yang together. Again, barring all the other bullshit with them. But again, in this volume, they're doing everything right. At least a lot of things right. Sorry, not everything right, but they're doing a lot of things right. It's just, and again, I'm very happy with this volume. I don't want to make it seem like I'm upset. I am thrilled. I am shocked that we had 3 great RWBY episodes in a row. These last 2, seriously fucking top tier for TV in general, not even just RWBY. These last 2 especially, and they connected well with the previous episode, which was good but maybe not great. I'm just, it's frustrating. The fact that these episodes are good enough are what make me more frustrated with the other shit they've done, because these episodes are so good. Like, why couldn't you have done a better job with the other shit?
Well, I have like I feel like looking back on the whole of the thing, since that's what you're talking about, like Ren and Nora probably should have been together from day one. I feel like that would.
I agree.
I feel like that would have been a better dynamic in all sorts of ways.
Oh yeah,
Like
I agree.
they could have been like, the model couple that all other relationships can be bounced off of, sort of. The foil relationships, kind of.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
offer up like a little bit of, romantic advice or something. Like, like, let's say, I don't know, example, Yang wants to punch Blake in the face for not washing the dishes or some shit, and then you could have like Nora come up and be like, "Oh no, don't punch her in the face for not washing the dishes. You shouldn't do that in a good relationship. This is a
You got to
very
use a
base
phone
line."
book. They won't leave bruises.
Yeah, exactly. This is a no. I'm talking. That was like the baseline top of the head thing I could think of, but fucking yeah, the that is, that is like a Monday night quarterback type deal, but fucking I feel like they there wasn't really a whole lot of room to develop them, and so starting them off in a place where they had basically uh, they kind of started off already like the way they should have been, except in a technical sense, and they used that technicality to play them off for really unsatisfying drama instead of, using them like a model of stuff. This is kind of like a lot of the things, actually, now that I think about it, that they haven't done kind of correctly. Like you have you have them that they could have used as a model of romance that other people aspired to, that kind of like uh, becomes the catalyst for things, and they didn't use them like that. You have Crow, who could have been like the ultimate huntsman mentor guy, the experienced warrior type dude that people look to and aspire as a model of what they should do fight wise. And they didn't do that because, well, for one, everybody is already somehow a tactical and strategic genius whenever it's necessary for them to be, and when not, they start stumbling around like weird, retarded man children. But the you have like Ozpin, the aged guy who has seen the rise and fall of every cycle of human history, get could have been like a good key to in all the esoteric knowledge of the entire world, and instead gets put into the body of like a freaking 14-year-old boy to be used as a punching bag for why didn't you do better. This there like, if you want to see a show that does not use characters to the potential that they could be used, then yeah, you came to the right place.
Yeah, and again, I to those listening who are annoyed about how much I harp on about Renora, I'm sorry, but at the same time, the reason why I do it is kind of, they're a great metaphor for the wider show with a lot of the issues that the show has. And part of the reason I hang on to them so much is because, yes, I am a hopeless romantic. You know, I married my high school sweetheart. I am that kind of person, so I do love that kind of shit. I pretty much only watch slice of life and romance animes when I watch anime. So that is me. But also because it was the one thing that was, at least for a while in the beginning, pretty consistently well done in a well-written relationship. And now we have this volume, which is doing the characters and the relationships and all this stuff really well. And the fact that they just fucked the one consistently decent thing they did previously in the last volume, only to do all this other better stuff in this volume, is just, oh, it's so irritating. It's so goddamn irritating.
Yeah.
Oh my god. It's
Well,
fucking
dude, you might be a hopeless romantic, but I'm just hopeless. So you
Hey,
at least got that up on me.
man.
Just-
Oh God,
So-
what a lucky bastard marrying your high school
So,
sweetheart.
something we haven't addressed, at least I don't recall us addressing this for this volume, is the fact that Jeff Williams is no longer the main musician of the series. It's Casey Lee now, Casey
So
Lee Williams, his daughter, and she's added a lot more like kind of energy and enthusiasm to the soundtrack that hasn't really been there since Volume 2. And this episode is a good example of that. Like, I have a long history of being very Bumblebee neutral. I made a 20-minute video about how Bumblebee neutral I was.
I remember this video.
I was enthusiastically Bumblebee neutral. Which sounds like an oxymoron, but it isn't, and you would know it isn't if you watch that video, which you should. It's one of my best, most viewed videos out there, and it's probably the one I've gotten the most praise for, in the history of my channel. But I have I have an even longer history of taking a self-righteous shit on Blake. Another one of my top performing videos of all time is an honest look at Blake, which is basically a string of expletives with some literary analysis connecting those expletives.
Is that where you have like your all-time great like little mini paragraph about how broken Blake is as a character? Is that where that comes from? I remember that.
I think if you're talking about like the Blake is a stupid twat, she's Hope Lizzie entertains too.
That one.
That was in an episode review at the start of my channel. It was like Volume 4, Episode 3, which was the episode where her and Sun fought like the sea dragon that Blake inadvertently summoned by being
Yep.
moody, irresponsible, and
bitch.
by being moody, irresponsible, and stupid. I did, in my honest look at Blake, though, take that scene from that episode review and reused it. If I'm remembering that correctly. These are all videos I worked on like 5 years ago now. It's been like 5-6 years since I made those videos. But so when I say that this scene worked for me, that's impressive. That's something, because I was very hesitant towards liking anything regarding Blake. I thought, because again, I got kind of spoiled on this happening. I was like, oh, cool. I was gonna be like, okay, cool. They finally did it. Moving on. That's how I thought I was going to react. This actually made me like giddy and excited. I was like, oh my god, this is actually like a really good scene. Which speaks volumes. And I think a lot of that was because of whatever song they inserted into the scene. That sounds like yeah, I'm trying to think of what it sounds like ABBA, or
Sounds like Teen Spirit is what it sounds like.
I don't think so, but sure.
It doesn't, but
Well, yeah, they're older than teenagers now. They're in their 20s, so
Yeah,
can't be teen
yeah.
spirited.
close enough. But the point is that like you're I think I might want to needle your point of view a little bit on that there. Do you think maybe that the reason that you kind of liked something they did with Blake is because they have been cautiously not actually doing anything with her over the last couple volumes?
That probably helped. Yes.
Yeah.
Particularly with how little she did last volume. Um she was not responsible for any of the shenanigans that happened in volume 8. So, there's quite a bit of distance. That, and the fact that we had that prolonged hiatus in between volume 8 and 9. Now, a lot of that, it's in the past now. Volume 4 was a lifetime ago. Volume 5 was a lifetime ago. All is forgiven through time. Time heals all wounds. Except for stabbing a redhead, apparently. Which,
Oh man.
can't blame
Speaking
Jean
of,
for that. So, I like Ruby shock. I like Ruby shocked expression. We kind of touched on that with the whole Arrow Ace thing. But speaking of stabbing redheads and having PTSD from it, that final scene.
That final scene, though. Oh boy.
Ruby got Crescent Rose back, and she fucking hates it.
Oh, it's like reminding her. It's like, this is your thing. You're gonna have to go die now.
I like how
Salem and go
love
die.
I like how people are questioning like how Jean was able to find it when like all we hear is that it was the first thing he saw as he was falling, which we saw at the beginning of this episode, and then he finds it, quote, years later. Vagueness as that is. And then as he goes on to explain it, we don't hear his explanation because Ruby is having Vietnam flashbacks and freaking out like Captain America in I think it was like Avengers issue like 5 or 6 when Rick Jones puts on the Bucky outfit and Cap just like loses his mind. It's so good.
I just love how consistent they're being with Ruby here. I never would have ever in a million years at the beginning of this show guessed that at some point Ruby would lose her weapon, and then when she got it back, she would be upset about getting it back. I love that theme. I love that so much because throughout that is one thing where I don't know if it's kind of, and they might have accidentally kind of stumbled into it, but they utilized it so well in this volume. Again, more examples of how they're doing volumes so well on this. that like Ruby has always been so fucking attached to her weapon. The theme of, her mom used the scythe, Crow used the scythe, Crow's the one that taught her. She's always been so reliant on her weapon. It doesn't make sense that she's useless without her weapon, but you know what? They've been consistent with it. And now she finally has it back. And the fact that she's not happy about it, she looks scared as shit. God, that shows just how much of a bad place she's in right now. And I love that. I like that because we're already, what was this episode? What episode was this? 5 or 6?
Six.
This is already episode 6. There's only 10 episodes in this volume.
We got 4 episodes.
They've been so consistent with this, and we still have so much to go through. I am now actually getting to the point where I'm optimistic that Ruby will not have her shit sorted out by the end of this volume. And I am very happy about that. I really like that. It seems like, no, they are going balls deep with this idea with her, that they are going to just, like, they are broken down her character, and they're being consistent with that. And I like that because, I mean, it does make sense. She's honestly, like, it's funny, again, they kind of use their accidental shit to their advantage. Ruby hasn't really been that successful. In fact, in some cases, she's been decidedly unsuccessful. And sure, while Blake, they're not giving her comeuppance, but you know what? They're giving Ruby comeuppance for, even if it's not really her fault, she has to deal with the consequences of being the leader. And I like that. Okay, fine. You know what? It does suck that Blake's not having to deal with her bullshit. But you know what? At least Ruby is dealing with shit, and they're doing that well. And I just like that they're being so consistent with that. It's a sign that they actually know what they're doing with their character right now, and I like that. It's very promising for the future. I hope, they could fuck it up. But it feels nice to feel this confident about it and be this optimistic about it.
Yeah, I don't know. If it hadn't come just so late in the game, I think I don't know. Like, I feel like it's just all of this stuff is just hampered by just how long it took them to get about doing it.
Yeah, and as far as the weapon goes, that we'll probably have to address that more next time.
Yeah, that's a next episode with the weapon. I just
Yeah,
look
because
forward to,
that's
like,
the closer here.
yeah. I'll just say this. Weiss and John definitely romantically primed now. I look forward to seeing Ruby, like, fight and then just, like, throw her weapon on the ground and just like yell fuck and get into the fetal position.
I would like for Ruby and Jean to have that a kind of moment similar to Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch in Age of Ultron, where like maybe the Jabberwocker attacks and Ruby is like freaking out, like she's not sure if she can handle it, and Jean's like, Ruby, I'm an idiot loser with a broken rusty sword and I'm still fighting.
I'm a hobo fighting this thing.
Yeah.
And
none
I'm
of this
riding
makes
Coop
sense.
into battle.
None of this makes sense.
Also, I'm like, wait, like it's he's kind of been exposed to probably like the same amount of shit Ruby has, like pretty much the exact same amount. Like,
I would say just as much trauma too.
Yeah,
I would say more just because he's been in this specific world longer. So he's got like the extra baggage on top of all the stuff that him and Ruby have basically went through together, like with the whole Pyrrha and Penny and everything.
He's also the one who bullshit his way into school. He's been a fraud more. He's even less successful than Ruby, and he's the one who had to actually physically kill Penny.
Oh man, revisiting an honest look at Jean when the series is over is going to be a treat. I'm looking forward to that. That's one reason. That's one reason why I'm looking forward to RWBY ending, is because I will then be able to actually go back and update all my honest look videos with actual in-game knowledge.
you open up the video of Filthy Frank like throwing the laptop into the trash can, but like you have photoshopped into the laptop, the title for that episode, and like, know your fucking place, trash.
Yeah.
Before we get to questions, I gotta mention something that's been floating around that will probably make the volume worse. If fuck, what's the brother's name again?
Lewis.
Uh if
Lewis.
Lewis was one of Ozpin's reincarnations has been a theory that's been floating around, and I hope that is not the case.
Yeah, fuck Ozpin. I gotta go,
Yeah.
but so I can't answer any of the questions. But yeah, I really hope not, because Ozpin and Oscar are shitty characters, so they can
Yeah.
go fuck themselves. Stay out of this. Stay out of my good volume. Thank you very much.
Yep. All right. See you later, or later, dude. Rather, I'm tired. I'm ready for questions.
Yeah, we might as well get
Yeah,
to it.
let's run through those real quick.
So Adriana Gomez, we had a lot, but a lot of them we've already answered, so it shouldn't take too long. Adriana Gomez asked, with the last scene of Ruby's reaction to her weapon being returned to her, do you think she'll either ditch it and have Summer's weird X weapon for the time being, or until she feels like she's ready to fight? No, because she doesn't have easy access to the Forge Realm. We don't even know what the Forge Realm was. So if push comes to shove and she needs to fight, she's going to have to fight with Crescent Rose. Like, she doesn't really have any other options.
I mean, yeah, alternately, they kind of, I do believe that if, that would be something of a nice little, thematic touch to it, is that she randomly gets put into the Forge Realm before another fight and decides to use that weapon instead, and kind of puts Crescent Rose back and doesn't take it back up, and then maybe for the rest of it, people are, the other characters are like, "Why'd you get rid of the other one and use that?" And she was like, and there's like no reason until the very end where she gets both of them back and does cool dual wielding scythe halberd moves with both at the same time. That would be neat. But
Lean into her previously established but never addressed again weapon mechanic expertise and have her actually like Jimmy rig them together into a brand new weapon to symbolize her development in this realm.
you gotta symbolize development with weapons and
Yeah.
guns.
That's
what I do.
They tried to do that in Volume 7. with the little yellow streak and Blake's sword that would actually make it far less durable.
Yeah, I mean, that is, that is a weirdly, good piece of symbology for her that was misused on the wrong object. She should have had but again, they didn't really think it through beforehand. Had she some type of pendant of her own that she could have cracked in half and then resoldered together and worn, that would have worked better for it. But like
Yeah.
practicality
Or if
is
they
not a thing when it comes to
or if
weaponry here.
Yeah, or if in Volume 7 they changed the ribbon to be black and yellow striped, that would have done the same thing, and then just have a completely new blade. Yeah, that didn't make any sense. But Crash Bash asked, do you think Alex is Neo or is Alex the blacksmith? And do you think that Jean inadvertently went back in time during Salem's time and created the fairy tale? I'm going to answer all three of these with a one-word answer. No.
No.
Alex is not
Yeah.
Neo. Neo is still running around. Alex is not the blacksmith. The blacksmith seems to be tied to either the gods or the Silver-Eyed Warriors or something else not Alex related. And Jean didn't go back far enough to kickstart the fairy tale shit with Salem. And also, he probably would have said something about that. That probably would have been priority number one. He was like, yeah, by the way, I kind of ran into a young Salem and didn't really know, and then she escaped and kind of missed an opportunity there to rewrite some history.
Yeah.
Metric asked, "Did you know the bird is the word?" Yeah. So, what were you gonna say on the other question, High Powered?
I was gonna say the only thing I would buy with like Alex having any connection to like Ozpin and Salem, it might be like one of their kids.
Yeah, one of their kids,
Or
or like the theory
or-
that you brought up that Lewis is one of the reincarnates, or maybe
Yeah.
Alex is one of the reincarnates. You know, not
Who knows?
outside the realm of possibility. For the way this reincarnation in name only works.
Yeah, like who says like Salem and Ozpin didn't have kids whenever they were still on speaking terms or whatever. That could have been like their, X or Y different litter or whatever of kids. Like who knows? Or even if it's like a relative too, it could have been like a granddaughter or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. So, Ruby Moon Rose asked, what did you think of the way they handled Blake and Ying's confession? We spent like a good 45 minutes on that, I feel like. Uh, so, yeah, we already answered your question, but thanks for asking, and thanks for supporting the channel. Dylan,
More.
yeah, Dylan Dockery, guys, I am okay with you guys asking redundant questions. It helps the algorithm. Uh, Dylan Dockery asked, "Dilf Hunter Weiss spinoff win?" Let me tell you, if I didn't have a job and if I wasn't already busy writing other books and short stories and making other things happen, I would certainly contemplate it.
But if you wanted to send media like $1,000 per se for that commission, you might have a hard
I
time
would,
saying no
I would,
about it.
I
Hey,
mean,
fuck
I would
that shit. Give
absolutely
me
have to.
$1,000. I'll churn out however many fucking weird fanfics of wife getting railed out by 40-year-old dudes you want.
I probably would too for $1,000. I would not charge that much for any kind of commission though.
I would.
Deserti asked, "Do you think Jean is going to snap sometime this volume?" I think he already has.
Joke's on you, viewers. I already have snapped. I think the question is when's Ruby gonna snap, and what's gonna happen afterwards is the real question.
Well, unfortunately, with the lack of redheads, we don't have any idea of what would happen, since, as we all know, Ginger snaps back.
What the f-
I need to put the meth pipe down.
So GQ Smith asked, "Do you think?" Oh my god, fucking guy. GQ, you're lucky you're like one of my best internet friends. Do you think Jean got Alex pregnant and Ruby is Alex and Jean's descendant? Fuck you for making me
Yes.
say those words.
Ooh, that would be bad. That doesn't make me feel good. I don't want to think about it. Ooh.
Well, like I said, we don't know when exactly this.
Yeah, the thing is, it's not impossible for it to have happened.
If Ruby is like Alex's distant relative, which is totally possible, I wouldn't be. I don't know how I'd feel. I'd feel something. But next question.
Yeah. Thor G1058 asked, "Do you think they can take one of those time fruits back to Remnant?" I don't think that's the way to work. I think as soon as you pluck it, it starts to rewind time until you break it. But once you introduce time travel, all bets are off. If they did have a time travel ability, they probably would contemplate murdering baby Salem before she becomes a demigod immortal.
Yeah, I mean they've already they don't have a whole lot of like huge moral fiber to them, so it could go either way on that, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
and
Next
I
question.
don't think they would wind up time traveling to before the collapse of the Atlantean
To the previous
civilization that
Kali Yuga
precursed
cycle.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. Stardust Warrior 16 asked, "Do you think Weiss's attraction to Jean is too superficial to make White Knight work right now?" It is superficial, which is why it's so funny.
Yeah, it's
Hey,
superficial, but that doesn't mean it couldn't work. Is the other thing.
Yeah, I mean
a lot of love
that's the
starts
thing.
off superficial. Like that's
Yeah,
the
that's the
if you're
thing a lot of
attracted
people get
that's fine.
wrong. That's a thing that a lot of people get wrong about romance and stuff is that a lot of times it does start off as superficial. You know, you see someone who's attractive and they're like, "Ooh, I want to get to know them more." And then you start talking, and then you start dating, and then that's when you find out whether or not you were only attracted to their superficial qualities or whether there is something actually desirable there underneath. You know, you
It
can't find that. You
also
can't
usually
you can't judge a book by its cover, but you can judge whether you want to pick up a book by its cover. Which is why the publishing service I use uh, costs like $500 for them to design a book cover for you.
yeah. Also, you do need to open the book and find out if it's got knives in it, or else you might find out just how much blood capacity you have. Just throwing that out there. But
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah. You
can
need
you
to.
really say you love can you really say you love someone if you're not on like an 8-hour car drive together and you just like let one rip out and like you wait a little too long to roll down the windows? Can you really say
that's
you love someone if you
that's
know?
that's the male version of a shit test, ladies. In case you ever wondered why your dude did that to you, we needed to ensure your loyalty via gas.
Oh, very so stupid. I love it. Uh, a stereotypical gamer asked, "Will Blake and Yang becoming a couple actually change the group dynamic in any meaningful way?"
No,
Yes and no. Yeah,
Maybe, kinda.
yes, because they're not gonna put that genie back in a bottle. They're not gonna they're not gonna one more day this relationship.
they
But
might. They might
no.
actually do it.
I
They
mean,
might very well fucking do it.
nothing is outside the realm of possibility. That
Yeah.
could be the
Well,
key to them actually getting out of here. Like, we gotta give the marriage to the devil. We gotta give our marriage to the devil, otherwise we can't escape.
oh, that
Yeah.
would be. Uh, they have to give something up. Oh man.
I'm going to
Oh,
give
Oh
up my
god.
love for this really, really nice girl who is in no way a complete piece of trash that I didn't want to be with in the first place and was just kind of pressured by a magic bridge to get together with.
yeah.
I totally love you, Blake. You're definitely not terrible. Oh yeah, me too, Yang. I love you so
I,
much.
I mean, for plot points, like I definitely could see some like irrationality, and then any sort of stuff that happens between like Blake and Yang that's dangerous, like automatically has more tension per se. So
Yeah. And
there
yeah,
is
and I'd
that.
say that's why like I'd say yes, but I'd say no on the merit that they've kind of already acted like a couple for the past like 2 or 3 volumes, and this was just kind of like the confirmation, and that's kind of the takeaway that everyone except Ruby has had. Like Weiss was like, "Oh, finally!" Like several episodes ago, John in this episode was like, "Yeah, I feel like I've been waiting for that." Ruby was completely shocked because she just doesn't get that kind of thing.
She doesn't have
Um,
the bandwidth for it right now.
yeah, yeah. She also just
Uh,
has a lot of other things going on in her head. She can't be concerned about who Yang is or isn't banging. Uh, God damn. I love you all, guys. Every single one of you that comment on my video and support the podcast and ask the questions. You're all awesome, but you're also all pieces of shit. Ash Berrien asked, with Blake and Yang now a couple, if they get into a couple's argument, who's gonna be the one to say so no head before they go to bed?
Ooh, oh, okay. Who would start the dead bedroom first? Um, fuck.
Yang would start it. She's got the vibro arm. She
Oh
doesn't need
yeah,
you.
She's the one that
Oh,
like she goes into the bedroom and just like takes the arm off and leaves it outside of the bedroom.
like, oh, Blake. Oh, so that's how you're gonna play it, Blake? Snap. Just sets the arm down. Uh, Exalted Sun, posted, a couple questions and theories and stuff. Um, but then his actual question, was it just me, or was that some foreshadowing about Jean possibly giving up his life to send the girls back to Remnant? I think that is a very strong possibility.
I
Uh,
feel like they should kill John.
someone is not coming. Someone out of this gulag battle that's going on right now, that's way into overtime. Someone is not coming back out.
Like,
It could be
I really
Neo. It could
do.
be John.
Well, yeah, I think Neo might die in this volume, but I do think that this could be the moment where Jean rides off into the sunset. Especially like if in next episode they introduce any kind of like long term love interest that he's had or kids that's where it's like, nope, Jean's not making it out this volume. He's either gonna survive and stay here or he's going to die. Like, there's no way he's returning to Remnant. That'll be that moment. But it's still up in the air right now. But I do think the possibility is strong that he does not ever leave the Ever After.
I want him to just kind of let him die. I think he's had enough. I wouldn't want to be in this if I was him anymore. I think just letting him sail off into the sunset would probably be a good idea here.
John just needs a thick farm girl to have 12 kids with.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably like more kids. I'd say 17 kids is probably like a good amount, like a decent number there.
So, Quiet Message asked, is it possible Lewis was the one who made it through and wrote the story and not Alex? And if that's the
Yeah,
case, is it possible Lewis was the one who called Jean handsome, adding sure,
adding gay to it? Yeah, there's
sure,
always a possibility. Yeah.
sure. Uh, Big P and Eugene asked, "What are your thoughts on Horning Weiss in this episode?" It's great. We've already discussed that.
Yes, we need more of it now.
Yeah. Then Adriana Gomez spammed several different questions, most of which I think we've already answered. How do you guys feel about how they wrote Confession Between Yang and Blake? Already did that. Will the Cat and Neo join forces at the near end of the volume? I don't know. I don't even know if the Cat's going to come back. He kind of cut his losses here and kind of just dipped.
Smart move, really, if you think
Yeah.
about it.
Got out while the going was good.
That's what I'd do as the Cat. I'd be like, yeah, y'all guys are weird. Y'all don't need
Yeah.
me. I'm apparently bringing down the vibe of the friend group here, so I'm just gonna go.
How would you guys prefer how Ruby's development would end this volume? We've kind of already discussed that. Discussed a couple different possibilities. What if Little was Summer? That's a theory. I don't like it because I've always been adamantly against Summer coming back in any kind of physical capacity. Like, keep relegating her as like flashback fodder and ghost figures. We don't need her actually coming back to life in any kind of like meaningful capacity. I'd rather her not.
Yeah,
Uh,
I still think like Tiny could be someone else per se, but
yeah, I still
definitely not Summer.
yeah, Little didn't get a whole lot to do this episode, which is why we haven't really addressed her. But that's still a Chekhov's gun waiting to be fired. Is that there's I still feel like there's gonna be a certain shoe dropped on Little. So
Yeah, I don't know what exactly they'll do with Little. I don't know what little has to do with anything really. I think I think little, if anything, is kind of a red herring. I don't see what the mouse is important as, other than it's a mouse.
Yeah, so that's it for the questions. Any other thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, that's about it.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything to say other than what has been said, probably.
Yeah. Well, if you like this video and you want to see more, like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord. Follow me on Twitter and Substack. I've been really busy with other projects lately, so I haven't been able to do a whole lot outside of these podcasts. But in May, I have a lot of stuff coming out. By then, I will have some kind of official announcement for my second book, hopefully. Then, there's also going to be the uh, next two parts of the Quint Breakdown series released at the end of April and start of May. Then that's also when Volume 9 is going to end. We're going to do our finale podcast, and I'm going to do my review. And then Tears of the Kingdom is going to come out, and I'm going to do a first impression video on that. And then at the end of the month, System Shock Remake comes out, and I want to do something with that. So May is when the going on my channel is going to get good. And then in June, I'm hoping to finish up the Quint Breakdown series and move on to other projects and other books and other short stories. And yeah, stay tuned for all of that. And until next time, thank you all for watching.